Buenos días, estudiantes. This is the video I'm making for the adverbial clauses for chapter 13. In previous chapters, you've seen how the subjunctive is used with expressions of emotions, doubt, negation, and others. There are other instances in which you use a subjunctive, which is uh, in other conjunction words. So far you have used the conjunction que, but there are many others. And when you have these other conjunction words, there is a chance you might be using que. It is not as black and white as what you've seen in the past with the subjunctive, so I wanted to make sure I made a video, and if you have any questions at the end of this video, just shoot me an email and I'll be happy to answer. So there are other conjunction words besides que in Spanish, and those can be divided into conjunction words for purpose and of time. These words express in English so that, with the purpose of, provided that. So the second clause of the sentence would be a sort of condition for something to happen, and we'll see that in a minute. And the conjunction words that deal with time are things like before, after, as soon as. In Spanish, all of these, most of these, have que within their makeup, within their grammar. Okay, so first let's look at the conjunctions of purpose. Okay, so for conjunctions of purpose we have a fin de que, sin que, a menos que, con tal de que, para que, en caso de que. So all of these will be using the subjunctive. For example, look at this one. Voy al cine con tal de que vayas conmigo. You see how the second part of the sentence, that what is described on your slide as a dependent clause, is sort of a condition. Okay? Something that happened that hasn't happened yet. I'm gonna go to the movies provided that this happens. So it is not for certain. It is just a condition you're making. So with these words, a fin de que, a menos que, para que, sin que, con tal de que, en caso de que, you will use the subjunctive because there's a meaning of purpose, but also there's some sort of condition that needs to be met. I'm gonna do this so that this happens. You know, that's purpose, right? I'm gonna do this unless this happens. That's some sort of condition, right? And then para que is also another way of saying so that. Sin que is some sort of condition as well. I'm gonna go to the movies without you looking out, without you purchasing something, or without you speaking during the movie. Okay? Provided that, another condition, en caso de, in case, it kind of goes into the idea of purpose. So with these conjunctions of purpose, take into account also this idea of a condition that needs to be met. And I have some examples for you. So, mi mamá trabaja a fin de que yo estudie. So my mom works for the purpose of, so that, right, I study. Okay. And estudie, it's not yo estudio, because that is the indicative form. Yo estudie, it's the subjunctive. Next one. Yo no viajo, I don't travel, sin que mi familia tenga la información del hotel. So in the indicative, it would be mi familia tiene, right? But because we have this sin que idea, right? I'm not doing this without this happening, this sort of condition. It needs to be in the subjunctive because there's a feeling that and a condition needs to be met. Okay? Yo no viajo sin que mi familia tenga la información del hotel. Next one. Yo como pizza a menos que tú quieras espagueti. I eat pizza unless you want spaghetti. It's not tú quieres because that would be the indicative. Tú quieras, it's the subjunctive, right? A menos que, unless. Yo ayudo a mi hermano con tal de que, provided that he does this. So I help my brother as long as he cooks, provided that he cooks. Yo ayudo a mi hermano con tal de que él cocine. The indicative is cocina, right? But because you have this conjunction of purpose, you need the subjunctive. Él cocine. And last one. Yo voy, I'm going, right? En caso de, which is the last one on your list, in case, right? En caso de que tú necesites de mí. In case you need me. Okay? So it's not tú necesitas, it's tú necesites, because we're using this conjunction word. There is an exception in which you will use either the subjunctive or the indicative, because aunque means although or even though, and it depends if what you're trying to say, you say it with certainty, something you already know, or there's something that we don't know. So the way you express if there is certainty or uncertainty in what you're saying is by either using the indicative or the subjunctive. So if there is no doubt, you use the indicative. If there is some sort of uncertainty, you use the subjunctive. And this conjunction word, aunque, even though, although, takes both. And it's just a matter of context and what you want to express. Both are grammatically correct. Let's look at the example that the book gives you. For when to use the indicative, it needs to be something certain, right? So this is the example they give you. Aunque el concierto es en abril, no puedo ir. So even though the concert is in April, I can't go. There is no doubt that the concert is in April. Okay. For the second one, the only thing that changes is the verb to be, and it goes from indicative to subjunctive. Aunque el concierto sea en abril, no puedo ir. So even if the concert is moved or it may be in April, even if it's then, I can't go. Okay? So the only difference between these two, again, these are both grammatically correct, is the feeling that you give the person that there is that the concert may or may not happen in April. The first one, you're expressing no uncertainty. On the second one, you're saying even if it isn't around there, I can't go. Okay, I'm giving you another example, that two sentences that are exactly the same, and the only thing that's different is one is using the indicative and one is using the subjunctive. Aunque no te gusta la pizza, voy a ordenar dos. Number two, aunque no te guste la pizza, voy a ordenar dos. What's the difference between these two? On the first one, you are expressing that you know this person and that you know that this person doesn't like it. On the second one, you're saying that even if that is the case, that means you don't know if this person for sure doesn't like pizza. But you're saying even if that is the case, I'm gonna order it anyway. So both are correct. The only difference is you're expressing through the indicative or the subjunctive what you don't know and what you do know. On the first one, you're saying, I know you don't like pizza and I'm ordering it anyway. On the second one, you are saying, I don't know if you like pizza, but even if you do or you don't, I'm gonna order it anyway. I hope that was a bit clear. This only happens with aunque. with even though, with although. It takes both, and it is up to you to give it a meaning, if it's certain or uncertain. So those are the conjunction words that deal with purpose. And remember, aunque is an exception. There's another group, which is the time conjunctions, the conjunctions of time. And these are antes de que, tan pronto como, en cuanto, después de que, cuando, hasta que. So why would these use the subjunctive? We use the subjunctive with conjunctions of time because there are some things that haven't happened yet. So when you say as soon as, you're sometimes that can be translated as something that hasn't happened yet. I will do what you're telling me to do as soon as this other thing happens, or I will do that when that happens, or I will stay here until this thing happens. Again, there is some sort of condition that needs to be met, but you are dealing with things that are either hypothetical, right, that haven't happened yet, or incomplete things like this I will do when this happens. So that's why conjunctions of time are directly related with the subjunctive. However, as opposed to the conjunctions of purpose, which most of them use the subjunctive just by using them, these can either use the indicative or the subjunctive, kind of like aunque. Okay, so let's see. So in order to determine if you're using the indicative or the subjunctive with conjunctions of time, you need to ask yourself, has the action happened yet? If it is a completed action or a habit, things that happen every day, then you use the indicative. A word to look out for is this word siempre, which means always. So it tells you that this person does that as a habit, so you will just use the indicative, just a regular present tense that you know from Spanish 1 and 2. However, if the action described in the sentence has not yet happened, it is either hypothetical or there's some sort of condition, something in the future, you need to use the subjunctive. These incomplete actions, you use the subjunctive. These completed actions, then you use the indicative. And sometimes you will see that they're in the past. In that case, you use the indicative. You use the past tense. And we'll see some examples on the next slide. The only exception to this rule is antes de que. It always uses the subjunctive because within itself it already expresses something that hasn't happened yet. It's literally before that. So we know that whatever comes after has not yet happened. So antes de que will always use the subjunctive. Other conjunctions of time, you have to look at the context and determine if the action has happened yet. If it's in the future, if it's in the future or in the present, then you need to look at the indicative. If it's in the future, you need to use the subjunctive because it's incomplete. If it's in the past or the present, then you need to use the indicative. Okay. So let's look at these again. So it's antes de que, before, which is immediately, only subjunctive. Tan pronto como, en cuanto, después de que, cuando, and hasta que can either use the indicative right after or the subjunctive. And the question that you need to ask yourself is, has the action happened yet? Okay. So the book gives you some examples, and I have my own on the next slide. So let's look at the ones that the book gives you. This is in the future. Okay. That means that the action has yet to happen. Los músicos van a aplaudir cuando llegue el director. The musicians are going to applaud when the conductor arrives. So when are they going to applaud? In the future. So this action after the conjunction cuando, when, has not yet happened. So you need to use the subjunctive. Los músicos van a aplaudir cuando llegue el director. Next one is a habitual action. With habitual actions, you use the indicative, not the subjunctive. Los músicos siempre aplauden cuando llegue el director. So the first one is they're going to applaud when the director arrives. The second one, the habitual action, is they always do that. So you don't use the subjunctive with habits. Los músicos siempre aplauden cuando llega el director. The first one is cuando llegue. The second one, cuando llega. The third one is a completed action. As you can see, the sentence is in the past, so it has all come and gone. Los músicos aplaudieron cuando llegó el director. It's in the past tense, both verbs. The subjunctive is nowhere near this sentence because these actions have come to pass. And note that there is one exception, okay? You always use the subjunctive with antes de que, which is what I explained in the previous slide, because it already encompasses something that hasn't yet happened before something happens. Look at this one. Los invitados van a la recepción, right? Antes de que lleguen los artistas, before the artists arrive. So with antes de que, you will always use the subjunctive. So, just to put it all together, these conjunctions of time and the subjunctive. If the main clause is in the past, it is a completed action and you must use the indicative. Let me give you an example in English, okay? When you would use the indicative. The equipment was in terrible condition when I arrived. When is a conjunction of time, so you have to determine if it's going to be the indicative or the subjunctive. Because the sentence is in the past, you use the indicative, you don't use the subjunctive. Next point. If the main clause, meaning the first part of it, is in the present, but expressing a habit, right? If you're expressing a habit, something that always happens, you must use the indicative. Like, I always brush my teeth. Not only today, just every day. He never eats bread. You use the indicative. Now, if the action has not happened yet, it's expressed in either the present or the future, you must use the subjunctive. Like the first one. It's in the present, but the action hasn't happened yet. When I grow up, I want to be an astronaut. So grow up would be in the subjunctive, right after cuando. The next one is in the future, so you know it hasn't happened. I will fix the issue as soon as. That's another conjunction of time. As soon as I arrive. Right after it, there will be subjunctive because the action has not happened yet. So I have some examples here for you. Mi mamá siempre prepara la comida en cuanto mis... I made a mistake here. It's cuanto with an A. Okay. Mi mamá siempre prepara la comida en cuanto mis hermanos llegan. It's a habit. It needs to be the indicative. The reason you know it's a habit, it's this word siempre. My mom always prepares the food as soon as, en cuanto mis hermanos llegan. So, same sentence in the future, then it'll be the subjunctive because this action has not happened yet. It's in the future. Mi mamá va a preparar la comida en cuanto mis hermanos lleguen. Not llegan, but lleguen. Next example. Termino la tarea hasta que regrese mi hermano. Saying, I will finish, even though it's in the present, you're saying, this, I'm going to finish it as soon as, until my brother returns. Because you are waiting, there's this condition that hasn't met, that will be met in the future, then you use the subjunctive. Okay? Termino la tarea hasta que regrese mi hermano. Same sentence, in the past, you use the indicative because the actions have happened. Terminé la tarea cuando regresó mi hermano. I finished it when he returned. So it's all gone and come and gone. It's in the past tense. You use the indicative. So that's the lesson for the subjunctive with conjunction words aside from que. We saw the conjunctions of time and we saw the conjunctions of purpose. The ones of purpose is that there's some sort of condition to be met, or you're saying, I'm doing this for this reason. And the ones for time, they have to do with the chronological timeline, as soon as, before, or after. Email me if you have any questions, and we'll keep in touch. Thank you.